Sure.
Okay, awesome. So I'm really excited to be back. Maybe some of you have had the opportunity to be in some of my workshops and be a part of some of the other workshops, which I think is great. This is an amazing opportunity to be able to partake in a mindfulness practice, especially throughout so much going on in our world with the election and the pandemic. If you're out in California like me, you have the fires also to deal with, and it's a lot. So we really just want to be able to help everyone relax, take a breath. There's really no pressure in this session. And I'll go over a few things just before we get started, so that way we can answer any questions. As I'm going through that, if you could put in the chat anything that you're hoping to get out of this session today, why you're coming, what you'd really like to see, and I can try my best to tailor it to your needs, okay? So the first thing is that we're going to be creating some artwork today. We're also going to be doing a little bit of writing. And so it would be helpful to have art materials close by. Anything we'll do, really, it could be anything that you're interested in using: markers, pencils, pastels, any types of paper, things like that, and maybe a pen or a pencil to write with as well. No right or wrong with the art materials. You can use pretty much anything. And please ask questions throughout. There's going to be a few times where I'm going to ask for people to engage in discussion in the chat, and Helen will provide me with that feedback, so then we can get a good discussion going. And I think that's a really important piece, because as we go through, in a typical group setting, we can sort of all be together and bounce ideas off of each other, right? But in this format, it's hard to do that and feel the group energy. So I really want to create an environment where we can feel each other's collective group energy, and you guys can be inspired from one another as well. And the structure of this is really going to be, I'll speak a little bit about art therapy, and I wanted to focus on creativity in general today, and mindfulness. And so I'm going to give a little bit of a presentation on that. And then we'll talk about a little bit more, about your creative practices, and have a meditation, and go into a little bit of a longer art making practice. So I'm going to share my screen at this point, and we can get started. Is there anything coming up in the chat so far, Helen, that I should be aware of?
We have a comment that they enjoyed the fact that your last session gave a feeling of comfort. That was a good theme.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. I know it's always a little nerve-wracking for me, even as the facilitator, starting a new session in this format. I'm so used to the in-person groups. That's really helpful for me to hear that there's a way that we can create a sense of comfort together in this virtual setting. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so I'm going to share.
Reassuring too. I think what is reassuring to people is, if they're not coming from a place of creativity, they don't feel themselves as an artist per se, that they feel comfortable experiencing and having you facilitate them through a practice and a creative practice.
Great. Yeah, there's absolutely no right or wrong here. And it's a safe place to explore, make mistakes. There's no mistakes in art, but for you to be able to explore and do whatever you need to do. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so today we're going to look at cultivating a daily creative practice for your pain management, and just for your well-being in general, okay? Whoops. Okay, so what is everyday creativity, and what makes it so important, right? There's a lot of people talking about creativity, the importance of incorporating it into our life. There's a reason why Miles for Migraine is having these workshops, right? And so I really liked this illustration, which shows a little bit of the benefit of creativity, kind of really encapsulates it: self-expression, personal growth, safe mistakes, childlike freedom. On the pencils over there, it says wonder and playfulness, stress relief. There's really a number of benefits. And so for you to be able to integrate creativity in your own life on a daily basis could make such a profound impact. And so everyday creativity really looks at how creativity is experienced in our everyday life. So a lot of people think creativity is just making a painting or creating a score of music, right? And that's not necessarily the case. So creativity could be cooking, it could be working on a team, on a certain project. It could be looking up at the clouds and, free associating and seeing images in the clouds, home decorating, you get the idea. There's a lot of ways that creativity can manifest in our life. And we're taught to value creative products over the creative process. And so art therapy really values the process of art making as therapeutic. It's really looking at that process, which is essentially a mindfulness process, because you're completely engaged in the experience. And that's really what mindfulness is all about, is being able to take a breath, to be fully absorbed in your experience, and to glean some relaxation out of that. And of course, as we were talking about, there are real benefits to creativity: improved mood, relationships, even physical health, like reduction in blood pressure. We'll talk a little bit more again about, for migraine, what the benefits are. And so again, creativity is mindfulness. I really loved this quote. It's from a researcher, and it's really hard to pronounce his last name. I believe it's Mihaly. And he's done a lot of research on flow, creative flow. And he describes creative flow as being completely involved in an activity for its own sake. The ego falls away, time flies, every action, movement, and thought follows inevitably from the previous one, like playing jazz. So it's really about being present in your experience of creating art. And that's really what we're trying to do in art therapy, and to be able to experience that in your regular life. As you go throughout your day, maybe you're cooking a meal for your kids or fixing your car. How can you be completely engaged in your experience and be able to see this as a creative experience and reward yourself for that, right? I mean, it's not so often we're, giving ourselves a pat on the back for, doing laundry, but maybe, you have a particular way that you fold your clothes that's unique to you, something, as silly as that. We don't get praised for those sorts of things, but in reality, there's some inherent value to the things we do in our everyday life. And the theory is that if we can see these things we're already doing as creative, then we can reap the benefits of that. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of a expressive writing sort of warm up, just to kind of get us going here. And so if you have a pen or pencil available, I'd like for you to think about for a few minutes, how do you experience your creativity? Have you experienced this creative flow that we're talking about? Have you ever been absorbed in your creativity? When do you feel most creative? Are there certain things in your life, whether they're, actually painting or, dancing, or just doing things in your regular life, that you feel bring out your creativity? What ordinary things might you try to see through a more creative lens? So again, trying to reframe this for ourselves as what could we see as what we're doing as being more creative, right? So take a few moments here, take about 2 or 3 minutes, and just jot down some notes about this. If you could share in the chat a little bit about any of these questions, whatever resonates for you. And we'll give just a few minutes on that, okay? Okay. Now, has anyone shared anything, or would anybody be curious to or interested in sharing a little bit about what they're thinking about this topic?
We do have one of our participants saying that she feels most creative when she's cooking. She likes to try new recipes.
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
like the way that you're framing it to get people to think about their everyday life and the things to spin it in a creative lens.
Yep.
That
Yep.
really resonates with me because I would consider myself not a creative or artistic person. I come
Yep.
from a family, I have two really super creative and talented, what I would call artists as
Hmm.
sisters. And I always
Wow.
feel like I don't really have that. But when you tell me to frame things that I like to do, I
Yep.
agree with Katie. I feel the same way. I feel creative when I sit down and think about how I'm going to meal prep my family's meals for the week. I do
Yep.
find creativity in that. And I personally love flowers, so I love to just put them in a vase and share them.
Wow.
It's not a professional thing, but I
Right.
like that framing it from a creative lens. And we have
Right.
another one saying, I will try to see mowing the yard through a creative lens, pattern on the grass when mowing.
Great. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love that idea, of seeing a pattern on the grass, or, I mean, as you're arranging the flowers, really taking time to experience the colors and the different textures of the flowers and the scents. And that's a total mindfulness experience, right? So, these are things that we can really, work harder to engage our senses in. Cooking is a phenomenal one. That's actually one of my personal favorites too. So the reason why I wanted to frame our workshop around this is because most of the time when I do an art therapy directive, people say, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, but we really are. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And that's mostly because throughout our lives, we haven't been reinforced in this way. We haven't been told that we were creative for these things, but we really are. Because when you think about it, the experience internally and what it does for your mind and for your body is the same, right? So the experience of painting could be very similar to the experience of arranging flowers in many ways. There could be a lot of overlap there. And, as a reminder, what we pay attention to grows, right? So if we're going to pay attention to not being creative and more of like the negative aspects of ourselves, then we're just going to continue to grow and cultivate those things. But if we really try to reframe our experiences as being more creative, we can create more of that creative energy for ourselves. I feel like I keep saying the word create a lot, but it's
Yeah,
true.
but I think that resonates because we're starting to see people say things like fixing things, solving
Yeah.
issues, thinking outside of the box, volunteering hobbies. It framed those from the standpoint of those being creative as opposed to just being a means to an end. I also love one that came through that said they're starting to realize that their job is creative. They do academic coaching. So
Oh,
they sit
totally.
down with students and they try and brainstorm new avenues for them. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
really creative.
That's one where you would have to get really creative, right? I mean, you have to meet somebody where they're at and come up with a creative way to approach them so that they'll be receptive and learn the material that you're trying to teach. So, I mean, that takes incredible creative pivoting. There's an author on this subject. She's probably the biggest writer on everyday creativity. Her name is Ruth Richards, and she's written a number of different books and has publications. So there's a new book that came out. It's called Everyday Creativity, Dynamic New Paths for Self and Society. And that is a really phenomenal one if you want to learn more in this subject.
Wait, can you say that again? I'll put it in the chat.
It's
Ruth Richardson?
Ruth Richards, and she writes about everyday creativity. She has a book that came out last year that's Everyday Creativity, Dynamic New Paths for Self and Society, I believe it's called.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so
We have
check her
lots of
out.
things. People talking about journaling,
Yep, yep.
obviously cross stitching, that is artistic to begin
Oh
with.
yeah, that's a great
Planning
one.
gifts. I mean, that's another thing, as I say, I love your challenge to see your ordinary activities as creative. Planning gifts for friends and relatives, like you wouldn't necessarily
Right.
classify that as artistic, but it certainly is.
Isn't
Certainly
it?
is. Yeah.
Yeah. That takes a lot of planning and energy
And
and
thought.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so wonderful. Thank you everybody for sharing. I really appreciate that. Okay, now we're gonna move a little bit more into migraine. So these are slides that I share every time, but my art making, creativity decreases physical pain associated with migraine. It does not replace the need for medication, but it can shift your mental focus away from the pain, right? And onto the art making or whatever creative activity you're doing. It really helps to reclaim ownership of one's life. You feel like you have more control over what's happening in your experience. And it also expresses more of the visual arts or music or, you know, creative writing can really express what the pain looks like, feels like, sounds like, maybe when there are no words to describe it, right? And again, this is an image I love. It's someone who experiences chronic migraine, and I just really love how they depicted their migraine experience here in their whole neck and head and all of the colors, and how, you know, they talk about how migraine can really go nuclear in your life. It can destroy your health, relationships, your dreams, and it's all happening in the inside, and no one can really see what that looks like for you or feels like. It's an invisible illness, right? Okay, and so as we move into the next phase of our time together today, these are some things to keep in mind, but I think everyone's doing a great job and really understands this very well. So everyone has the ability to be creative in some way. There's no right or wrong here. We're gonna work towards letting go of inner criticism, okay, and embracing more of your spontaneous side. And that really ties into mindfulness and resonates for me, because mindfulness, as you may have heard in some of the other workshops you've attended, that it's about non-judgmental awareness. They always talk about this non-judgmental awareness. So how can you be aware of what you're doing creatively without that judgment, right? That criticism is not going to do any good for us. It's just going to hold us back. And most of the time, those critical voices are other people that have, you know, told us these things about ourselves that are just really projections of maybe some negativity that they're experiencing or insecurities that they have or something like that. And so I always tell my clients when it comes to self-talk and, you know, these thoughts that come into our mind about ourselves, any thought that you have that's not self-compassionate is not a thought that you should listen to. So those critical thoughts, they're going to cause a lot of pain and unnecessary suffering. And so it's better if you have a thought to be curious about it, right? So without that judgment, just be curious about, why is that criticism coming up for me? Where does that come from? You know, instead of spiraling and thinking you're the worst person in the world and you're a failure, right? We can go to some pretty dark places. I think we've all been there, you know? And so just important to notice those thoughts as they come up today, as we go through the meditation and as we go through the art making. And so you can explore the art materials today, think about what art materials work for you, experiment. There's a list of materials provided. Again, certain materials may aggravate migraine symptoms. So if you're experiencing a lot of pain today, you know, try to really take it easy and notice that for yourself. No expectations, just invitations. That's something I like to say. So throughout this process, if something that we're doing together doesn't feel right for you, there's no expectation to do it. These are invitations. And so we're working to create a certain creative structure to hold us in this experience. But if that structure feels too rigid for you, feel free to break free and take it in your own direction. A lot of times that structure can be helpful and guide us, but if it feels too constrictive in some way, then definitely, you know, create what feels right for you today. And trust the process. I like to say that as well. Okay, let me stop screen sharing for now. Okay, any questions or anything else coming up as we're going through our experience?
I think they're ready to go.
Okay. All right, so now just get comfortable in your chair or your bed or wherever you're feeling cozy today and comfortable. And just start with gentle breathing. Just notice where you're at with your breathing. And recognize that for the next several moments, we're going to be spending some time together. You can keep your eyes open, or you can keep them closed, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. So notice your breath moving in and out of your body. Really try to fill your belly with air. And then exhale, releasing any tension from your day. How was your day today? Maybe there's certain parts and memories that you can reflect on that are more positive. Maybe other aspects of your day were more challenging for you today. Just take a moment to know that in this space that we are creating together, this space of creativity and wellness, that you can let go of your day. You can let go of everything that has happened to you for today. And just really try to be present with whatever's coming up. Continuing to breathe naturally now. Let your body rest here. Know that wherever you're at, however you feel, it's completely okay. Draw your attention to any areas of your body where you're holding stress, tension, maybe your neck or your shoulders, your hips. Just scan your body for any remaining signs of tension, pain, and release this now. And allow yourself to rest. And what I'd like for you to do in this place of rest is to focus on something that brings you joy. Something that always brings you joy no matter what. It could be a person, it could be a place, it could be a special moment in your life that gives you a positive feeling. And in this space, really create a visual for yourself of what that joyful experience or person, what that looks like for you. Notice the colors. Notice any sounds. Notice the feeling of the air in this space. Is there anything that you can touch? really pay attention and get a really good snapshot of this. And really absorb how it feels to be present in this joyful space. In this space, you are well, you are rejuvenated, you are okay. There's no pain, there's no suffering, just rest and joy. Just take a few more moments here to be present with this joy. And imagine that this visual and this image that you have can be transferred onto a piece of paper. This is something that you can always carry with you and that you can always have. Like a photograph of this time. You can imagine yourself holding on to this image in your hands. And it can always be with you. You can always return here. So let's take this image that you have and gently fold it up, roll it up, whatever's good for you. Place it inside of a box or container. Imagine yourself taking this image and gently storing it away. Knowing that you can choose to open this box at any time that you wish to return. Whenever you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, know that you can return here at any time and place your container in a safe space. Take a few breaths here. Breathing in, breathing out as we say farewell to our image for today. And whenever you feel ready, you can slowly bring yourself back to the present moment. You can take these joyful feelings with you. Start to move your body a little bit just to get acclimated back into our space that we're creating. That was really nice, thank you. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is think about how to create a visual representation of this joy. This could be any aspect of what you imagined. It could be a symbol or even colors maybe that you imagined, an abstract image, something that captures this experience for you. And so what you can do is you can take your art materials at this time. Maybe in your own space, you can put music on. We're going to have the next 10 minutes or so to explore this independently, this idea of joy and how we can express it visually. So please take this time, and I'll let you know when we're going to be wrapping up our art experience for today. Take a few more moments to keep working. Stop in just a few minutes. And it's okay if you don't come to a stopping place. This is something you can always continue to work on throughout your day, throughout your week. All right, how's everybody doing? Can we find a place just to be able to wrap up for this moment? It's always something you can come back to if it resonated with you. So at this time, I'd really like to hear from you. How was this for you? And what do you need from me now? Are there questions? Are there thoughts that I can support you in? I'm really glad that everyone came out today, taking time to work on yourself and take time for your self-care. It's always a really important investment. Is there anything coming up, even if it's just a word or a phrase that kind of encapsulates your experience? I'm seeing in the chat now ideas how to get unstuck. Unstuck. Yes. So in the last workshop that we did, we spent a lot of time on creative warm-ups. And so something that is really helpful when you're going into an art process can just be shaking out your hands, getting your body in a space where your hands can move freely, more spontaneously. You could try drawing with your non-dominant hand, just scribbling, or even ripping, tearing paper, just getting yourself out of this frame of mind of there being rules around the art that you're creating. Just making random shapes, just giving yourself permission to be playful. It's sort of a mental shift that happens. We tell ourselves it's okay to create whatever lines we feel like making, whatever lines our hand wants to make, and allow our hand to lead and we follow in a way, if that makes sense. I'm seeing someone else is coming out of a migraine attack and appreciating the creative sense of community. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a very isolating time. I feel really grateful to be able to get to spend time with like-minded individuals that want to create and focus on their well-being. And so I really appreciate that as well. And absolutely, it's honorable that everyone has come out today to really focus on themselves. I'm seeing that people feeling criticism and lacking tools and not having a whole lot of art supplies. That can be a barrier, you know, not having a whole lot of art supplies can feel, make one feel inadequate, right? That we're not real artists, we don't have the appropriate supplies. You know, that's okay. And it could be a creative challenge to, you know, work with what's on hand, right? Sometimes if I'm going into a school to do an art therapy activity with a child, or, you know, if I'm getting called out to different places, there may not be adequate art materials. So how can we, you know, take even the office supplies that we have? Everyone has some office supplies, right? A Post-it note or highlighters even. There's such different colors of highlighter that are really interesting, the way that they kind of blend over each other. There's great projects on Post-it notes and people, you know, creating very interesting things and posting them all together on their wall. So there's so many ways that you can do it, and we just have to let go of those barriers. It's really about letting go of those barriers and feeling psychologically safe enough to take those creative risks. And once we can get out of our own way, then the art will come, then the creative juices will start flowing. So that's my biggest piece of advice for everybody.
I think that's one of the things that I appreciated, again, feeling that I've never felt artistic, so to speak, that I didn't have to have these materials, that I could use a pencil and you could do a darker, lighter shading or whatever. You can still participate and reap the benefits of a creative moment when you're guided, such as this. It does seem like that the exercises to begin that we used last time were helpful.
Great.
And I think this time we did it instead to get yourself in a mindful place and come from that mindful place to translate into your art for something different. And I do really want to recognize both people that were in pain and decided to attend this.
Absolutely.
I really commend you, because that's what we're hoping with this series, for you to recognize that this is an important part of your treatment plan. And we hope that you do sense the value. Someone else had a treatment. I know a couple of people had a treatment today where they could have just, you know, gotten back in their bed and understandably felt the pain and languished in that, but instead they attended. So as you said, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to go to the positive side of yourself. So I think I love seeing that, and thank you you should be proud of yourself for doing that, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
We know it.
And in this time, it is so isolating. And there's research now on, how human connection and the interconnectedness that we have, it changes our neurobiology. So when we're in communication and in community with each other, there's mirror neurons. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of that, but we're sort of exchanging energy in our minds. It changes our chemistry in a really interesting way. And so it really is one of the most helpful things you can do, to just show up and attend something that will bring you into a different frame of mind. It may be one of the hardest things to do, to get yourself to a point where you can do that, but the fact that you're able to do that speaks volumes.
I know one of the sessions that I go to, they always start by saying the hardest thing you did was show up. Like, if you can get yourself to show up, and even if you say to yourself, maybe I can't do the whole thing, but I'll show up and do what I can, or listen or watch. And most often when you do show up, you find yourself getting reeled in. So I want to make sure I take this time to thank all of you for showing up. That's why we're offering this series. And you can see with Jen, that's why she's one of our favored facilitators. We did record this session, and it will be available on our YouTube channel. I'll send that out to all of you so that you can participate and do it again on your own time. I know I always find these mindfulness series, I really get in a place where it's still, depending on what time of day it is for you, it's still early for most of us, but it's kind of hard to get back. It does put you in a place where you feel really comfortable and relaxed. So I'm hoping that you all feel the same, and know that we will make it available to you so you can watch it again. Jen will be with us again in another session or so in our mindfulness series. So I encourage you to continue to show up for her sessions and the other sessions. Next week we have mindfulness and Tai Chi, and those might be, especially the Tai Chi, might be new to you. I encourage you to try it. It's a gentle practice, and all of our facilitators are really renowned in their fields and know how to guide you through their practices. So I can't thank Jen enough for being with us today, because we find such value in her creative process and guidance, and I hope you all felt the same. Know that we would love you to participate in our Run, Walk, Relax events and our support groups, which are available 6 days a week. We're here for you, and we want to continue to see you show up and share this experience with others so they can incorporate a mindfulness practice into their self-care plan, because it's really a value. So Jen, can't thank you enough for being with us.
Thank you, Helen, for getting this all organized and, giving us, the facilitators, opportunities to be able to explore this and support everyone. Absolutely. And I also am reading that the creative warm-ups felt really helpful. And so I think in the next session, I'll include more creative warm-ups like we did last time. And that will be really interesting. I'll create some different ones for you.
Great.
Okay.
That sounds great. Thanks to all of you.
Okay. Have a great evening, everybody.
Okay. Take care. Be